This is the first of 2 episodes in which we will discuss the hardwires called Locus of Control, Limiting Belief, and Low Resources. When listening to the numerous motivational videos available online, there's one characteristic that stands out above the rest, as something that will make you rise above your current circumstances. And this is belief. We need to tear down the belief system that limits us and adopt a way of living in which we become the captains of our own lives. Beyond this, we need to implement change to society to break limiting beliefs and habits in order to establish a platform for a healthier society.
Locus of control is a secondary hardwire. It comes from unconducive parenting and from abuse. Locus of control means what control I have over my life, the belief that I have that I do have control or that I don't have control. Somebody else controls my life, and that would be external locus, or I have a say, I have a choice, I have control. So when you are raised in a parenting home that is militaristic and autocratic, that says you have no say and you must keep quiet until I tell you so, then you're waiting for something outside of you to instruct you, and then you learn not to think for yourself, but you just follow what the external force is thinking on your behalf. So locus of control is the biggest reason for disempowerment in the African continent. It is proved over and over. So where does that come from? From the unconducive parenting environment and the socio-cultural environment and the rules that is at play, and that is saying you are not allowed to open your mouth or think. We will dictate to you what to do. We will command and we will control you. So if that is the status quo of a little child, then the child believes they can't think for themselves. They don't know that they can take initiative. They don't know that they can come up with amazing ideas and amazing choices, and then they get stifled in their brains. So if a person has got external locus of control, in other words, I can't think for myself, you must think on my behalf. I can't do this for myself, you must do it on my behalf. You must give me, I can't. Then the human is going to become more and more dependent. We call it the chicken-minded mentality, where chickens get fed outside the barn with pips, millipips, and after a while those chickens don't go and feed themselves, and they don't become free-range chickens anymore. They wait, they sit there and wait until the farmer comes to give the pips. The dependency syndrome kicks in. The more a person is dependent on somebody else, the more they will be abused, and they will just be a sheep that will follow and become a follower, and then you can control them like a puppet, and eventually you can actually take away their soul dimension, because they will not think for themselves and they will believe it's right. They will develop what we call a sense of entitlement and say, you must give me, I can't. And the more this regresses, chronic dependency creates the sense of entitlement syndrome, which creates the thief. Basically believing that I can open the fridge and I can take from you, or I can invade your property and it's okay, or I can go and just take over things. You don't have respect anymore, and you don't know where your boundaries are, and you actually haven't got a sense of self anymore, because you don't really know how to make choices. That is the most destructive state you can put a human being in, who's got such a high brain function and such an ability to respond, that can respond in a contributive way. Now they don't. They respond in a consuming way, what you can give me and that I need, and you stay in your primitive brain state. So there's the external locus of control. That would be on the scale of the hardwire assessment, that would be going up to 100%. When that scale is like 0 to 15%, you can see that person is more internally locused. So that person will be an entrepreneur and a go-getter, and a self-starter and a decision maker, and the job creator, the eagle-minded human. We need internal locus of control humans in this country because we haven't got jobs. Where do we get jobs from? Only from people who have internal locus of control. They are the only ones that can initiate and innovate and come up with solutions and ideas and create something that becomes a project that eventually becomes a job that employs the job seeker, that is the external locus of control, who says, I can't, somebody else must give me a job. So who is guilty here? Not only the parents, but the school system that teaches us that we must be externally locused. We must go and look for a job. We must not become initiators and innovators and job creators. We must become job seekers. There's something very, very wrong with our world.
Joan Wright, an experienced educator, gives her insight into the effect of external locus of control in our schools.
As an educator, I found that children are needing so much more structure. They're needing to have somebody switch their brain and be their thinker and be their initiator and creator. They're not having the ability to become initiators, creators. They're wanting guidance all the time. They're not becoming those self-driven, responsible young people that we know that they've got, and that yumminess that they've got inside them. And that's predominantly driven by huge anxiety to have to achieve, and anxiety from the parents as well to achieve. And a lot of it is coming from primitive brain activities. And what does that mean? What actually is that? That is from a level of high anxiety. And how does it manifest its way? It manifests itself in a variety of ways. We can either freeze, we just block out completely. We will fight and find every reason not to respond to whatever the task or challenge is. And we will flight and find every excuse. I need something to drink. I've got a sore stomach. I need to go to the loo quickly. I can't. All of that is just showing I'm not feeling okay. I'm not secure in this. And I actually am very, very anxious. And if we open up and have a look inside, so that's how it's showing it on the outside. But what have we got inside our dear young person? Is fear. They're showing fear. So how do we, as working with young people, overcome this and help them to become the initiators that they can be and get that yumminess that's inside of them out? How do we do this? There are 3 points that one would need to really look at. The first one is to meet them where they are. What does that mean? Meet them where they are. It means we need to meet them at the level that they are functioning. The level that they are functioning. What is that level? And there's a special term for that, and that's the OI level, the occupational intelligence level. And each one of those levels has indicators of how their behavior would be, how their behavior would manifest, the anxiety levels that they would have, and the way that we need to guide and crutch them to reach the next level of competency. Not only do we need to know their OI levels, another aspect that we do need to look at is what's blocking them. What are their hardwires? The blockers are the hardwires. Where do those come from and what are they? So right from the day that a child is born, the way their environment stimulates them, they have 2 feelings and 2 feelings only. I'm safe or I'm not safe. I'm okay, I'm not okay. I'm secure, I'm not secure. And it is every time that a child feels insecure and unsafe and not okay that one of those blockers or hardwires will develop. And it's those that keep them in that state of anxiety and fear. And that's what we need to know. That's what we need to really address and help them unblock what's blocking them and keeping them stuck in their particular OI level. The third thing that we need to do is look at the reasoning style of our children. We do need to know that emphatically, because we need to know how they're taking in the information, and that we need, it's also the point that we had, is we've got to meet them where they are. So how are they taking in the information that we're giving to them? And our brain consists of, we need to be whole brain thinkers, which consists of putting the two different parts of our brain together, our more analytical side and our more synthesizing side. And we need to know which dominant side does this child have, and how do we address them and meet them where they are with their learning style, and make sure that we can give them the right way of learning and being able to assimilate the information that we're giving to them. So now how do we do that? If it's a more analytical brain, it's a more Z brain where we zoom in on things, it's two-dimensional, and they need something tangible, paper, pen, something to work on, something in their hand. If it's a more ZOR brain, or ZOR reasoning style, it's a more zoom out, where it's the visual, the kinesthetic, the music, the creativity, and how do we get mathematics through to somebody who is in this 4D creative state. And that is our challenge, to meet the analytical and the synthesizing and mesh it into whole brain reasoning.
Independence is a key word within the study of occupational intelligence, and the goal to which all our actions should steer.
Unfortunately, with our education system so focused on the details, on the facts that needs to be learned, the accumulation of the facts in the short-term memory becomes a problem. It becomes actually overpowering. And for that reason, the learner has to cope with some external factors to regulate and to control that learning. And the learner uses then the norms and standards and rules and regulations as an outside factor to control their learning. That means it's an external locus of control for their functioning. The learner, therefore, becomes accustomed to external factors that control his life. They lose the capacity to become independent and therefore regulate their own lives. And that brings to them the sense of, I can't. Initially, when the child is quite young, it's necessary that there are external locus of controls in terms of norms and standards and rules and regulations of all kinds and everywhere around the school, around the home, around learning. Adhering to these norms and standards and these rules and regulations is safe for the child. Although it provides safety for the child may become dependent on these external factors. This may become a serious problem because the child will lose his ability, or his or her ability, to become independent. When the child moves to another environment, for instance, from school to university, a completely new set of requirements are being put and responsibilities are being put on the shoulders of the student. At home, there might have been a rule and regulation that you need to do your homework and study from this hour to that hour. At university, these standards and norms are not valid anymore, because at that point in time, the student will be independent with regards to deciding what should be my norms and standards. So the locus of control needs to move from outside to inside, where the student now needs to take responsibility for the hours he or she will study, ownership for that aspect of his life, and therefore becoming more and more independent.
Dependency and disempowerment go hand in hand. The dependent person becomes a tool for the abuser, as we can see in the next case.
The three hardwires that deal with beliefs, limiting beliefs, are called LOR, LOC, and LIB. And those three hardwires deal with blocking your ability to get to that optimum self. They hold back that intrinsic motivation for action. And there's a story I need to tell you. It's a story about Sipu. He was a homeless guy and he lived under the bridge in Kempton Park, very close to the ShopRite Checkers. It's not a nice story, but I'm going to tell you. This is going to explain to you the volitional effect of external locus of control, but the negative effect that it has on a person's response. So Tsepo was a homeless child. He was initially in a school, a Roman Catholic school, that took good care of him, but at the age of 16 he ran away and he started making ends meet on the streets. He realized that if he can live under the bridge in Voortrekker Street that is close to the ShopRite Checkers, then his life would improve. So he went there oblivious of what the challenge is going to be that's going to happen to him. So he got a very big challenge. There was a gangster called Big Joe that lived under the bridge. Big Joe said, if you want to stay on my turf, you've got to be initiated. You've got to prove yourself. And the next moment, what happened is there's a pathway of customers that park their cars and then they walk on this cemented pathway to ShopRite. And a woman was passing by and he said, go and kill that bitch. And he gave Tsepo a gun and Tsepo had to respond. So I'm going to play out the different components of the brain with these characters. I'm going to show you what happens inside the brain that creates the volitional willpower towards the action or against the action. So how much intellectual energy does he have from a knowledge point of view? He's got a bit. He has got the theoretical knowledge, but not too much because he doesn't know exactly this specific gun. But they've been talking guns. So let's say if you look at the energy, the volitional energy, let's move it like up to there. All right, now the next part of the brain, his practical experience in the task. Has he handled the gun? Has he been killing somebody? No, but he's been in street fights. So he's gone into the action and he's gone into fights and he's been fighting with knives before. So he's got a certain amount of experience, but not too much with this specific task. So it does give you a little bit volitional energy towards the action, but also not too much. Let's look at the next part in his brain. Now this we're going to call his socio-cultural intelligence. So from a socio-cultural point of view, how much energy does this challenge generate in Tsepo's brain towards the action? Think about that. He really craves to be part of this gang culture because he needs to belong to it. He needs to do something to actually become part of this culture. Remember, he might be a Tswana in his real culture, but now there's a subculture at play. That's the street culture. So the street culture is having certain behaviors that you must comply to. So this is going to motivate him to prove that he can do it so that he can be socially in with this culture that he's going to now live together with. So now you can imagine it's going to take quite a lot of volitional energy. So it's going to motivate him to prove that he can do it, and it's going to give him maybe even more volitional vavavoom into his brain than any of these other components of the brain. The next one would be spiritual. So this is this intelligence that is going to deal with love and with faith and with certain beliefs. And now if you think about it, he was raised in a Roman Catholic church, so he had learned some things about thou shalt not kill, maybe what's going to happen to you if you kill. So there must be something instilled in this boy, but he could also have enough to say, well, let God be with me while I'm doing this for my own survival, and he can use it to volutionize and to propel his action. Or he could say, well, God was never there for me, and I'm now in this mess, and I'm living a life where nobody cares and God doesn't care, so I can just as well go for it. So spiritually, it could volutionize him quite a lot to propel him into action. But in his case, what really happened is he really had a conscience. It did bother him, and it did block his mind. It did not motivate him into action. So let's say there was no volitional energy from the spiritual side. He was actually hesitant. So what is the next one? The emotional intelligence component of his brain. So if he can feel he belongs and other people recognize him, then it would be very good for his emotional side. So I think this is quite a driver in his brain to want to belong. He has to belong. For dear life, it's a survival thing. So it's going to energize his direction to the action. Then the next one is called the primitive brain. Now the lower brain, the primitive brain. So the primitive brain is just one-dimensional. It can only go into fight or flight, but also into freeze, of course. So if this whole challenge is so big, it can make him to freeze. But so many other components in his brain is already moving him forward. He's definitely not in freeze mode. But do you think he's going to flight? Or do you think he's going to fight? There's too much at stake and too much energy already towards the action going on in his brain. So very likely he's going to go into the fight. And he's going to definitely go into the fight. Now, what I am teaching you today is the LOC, the external locus of control. He hasn't got an internal locus of control if he's been thrown away by his parents. Nobody cares. He must just go along with whatever wind is going to blow him in whatever direction. So he's got an external locus of control. He is going to go for somebody like a Big Joe that is going to be the big energy, negative force that's going to propel him to do something. He will fall into the mobs and things like that because he doesn't really have a say. He's not going to say, hey, Big Joe, can we negotiate this a little bit because I also have a say in this. No. The locus of control is so external, it's going to flood him into the action. And collectively, there's one blocker, and that is his conscience. And then also there's not maybe enough knowledge, and there's here and there's something that is still not 100%, but look at how much energy there is that's going to create a forward movement towards the action. And what happened really in real life? Tsepo did go into action because there's a lot of energy and volition in his brain towards that negative action. And then yes, he did shoot the woman. He didn't kill her, but he did shoot her and he did wound her. And he did get caught. And 3 years later, after his prison sentence, that's where I met him.
By being responsive, adaptive, and contributive, our actions have the power to turn the tide. In the next episode, Vivian meets up with an entrepreneur and a change maker who share some valuable insights with us.